Welcome to Road to the Olympic Games 2024. I'm Keir Simmons. We're here in Paris, the City of Light, as it gets ready to welcome the world. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to take you around this city to the amazing sites and venues playing host to the Paris Olympics. We'll travel to the River Seine and also head to the Palace of Versailles, two of the most historic and picturesque venues ever showcased at the Olympic Games. But we'll start right here with what is perhaps the signature landmark of Paris, the Eiffel Tower. Rising more than 1,000 feet above the City of Light, at night illuminating the Paris sky, the Eiffel Tower is one of the most iconic sights in the world and the centerpiece for the Olympics. Kicking off the countdown to the Games, it will tower over the event just as it did the last time the Olympics were here, 100 years ago. NBC News was given special access to the tower and an incredible insight into Gustave Eiffel himself, who designed her and helped design another beacon of freedom and modernity, the Statue of Liberty. Madame Eiffel. Miriam Lornadi Eiffel is Gustave Eiffel's great-great-granddaughter.
Look at this. This is formidable.
As with so many modern ideas, the tower was not initially welcomed by all Parisians.
She was too modern. She was too modern and she was frightening. It was a monster of iron. It's so frightening for people.
Paris just wouldn't be Paris without the Eiffel Tower.
She's more than 130 years old now, so it takes a little TLC to keep her functioning and beautiful.
It's safe, right?
It is, because thanks to this guy, it's safe. So it's a lot of painting, firstly, because all this...
Because there's guys here, and there were guys up here.
So we have to paint it every 7 years to protect the iron of the structures from the rust.
Jean-Francois Martin is Eiffel Tower president and helped lead the bid for Paris to make Olympic history again.
In 1924, for the Paris Olympics, it was the first competition that was live broadcasted on radio, and the radio was on the Eiffel Tower. So we have a story with the Olympics.
Beneath the tower, a rare opportunity to see how the elevators work. What goes up must come down. They are hydraulic powered, using water, taking 100 trips up and down each day. In the 19th century, this was an engineering feat, helping folks avoid the stairs. There are a lot of them, but amazingly, Gustave Eiffel preferred them.
And he would climb the stairs up here every day.
He had his office here, and he went every day to work.
Should we go and meet your great-great-grandfather?
That office still there today.
Wow, this is amazing.
And so moving for me too. My grandfather with his blue eyes, a very athletic man. He was a swimmer, a fencer.
And speaking of athletes,
just down there, the beach volleyball. You could call this the nosebleed seats.
The centerpiece of the Paris Games, like her American cousin, the Statue of Liberty, represents a message from the past about believing in the future, about the power of hopes and dreams. Here we are along the River Seine. It winds through Paris, famously separating the left and the right banks. Along these banks, you will find the city's defining monuments, like the Louvre and Notre-Dame. But for this Olympics, it's the river itself that is in the spotlight. Oh look! A major cleanup operation began 7 years ago, a more than $1 billion project. Yet these efforts haven't necessarily eased concerns for Olympians competing in marathon swimming and the triathlon.
In the 5 mile through Paris.
If it works, then this Olympics will turn back time to when Parisians would cool off in the river. And while swimming in the Seine by the public was banned in the city in 1923, the year before the last Paris Olympics, the rule was not always followed.
Okay, I'm relying on you.
A little upstream, in a peaceful village just outside Paris last year, I met up with a friend from French TV who lives by the river and swims in it. I guess you just do it. A chance to truly test the water. It's actually really, really lovely out here. Peaceful, beautiful, quintessentially French.
The life is good here.
I can say I swam in the Seine. The city of Paris has bold environmental goals to be carbon neutral by 2050, and it is keeping that focus as it welcomes the world this summer. As national climate reporter Chase Kane explains, the city is going for gold by remaining green.
We believe the success of Paris is also how we will reduce the carbon footprint and to resist against the climate change.
Tony Estanguet is the president of Paris 2024 and three-time gold medalist who we met at a potato farm. Really, he was visiting one of the local farms providing 80% of the 13 million meals served during the games. Local food, less meat equals lower emissions. But that's just one slice of the green pie Paris has been cooking up to cut its emissions in half.
All along the way, people were saying, this is too ambitious, you're never going to make it. Actually, that was one of the most difficult things. People always telling you, this is not possible, you're never going to make it.
But Georgina Grinon says they've already made it. She oversees Paris 2024's decarbonization efforts and is especially proud they were able to help build and source enough new wind and solar to power these Summer Olympics with 100% clean green energy. Everything from windmills on the Normandy coast to solar panels on the roofs of venues in Paris. And speaking of venues, using existing arenas also helped slash their carbon footprint. Paris added temporary bleachers at a few iconic landmarks and only built 2 new venues for aquatics and basketball, and both of them have seats made entirely from recycled plastic water bottles.
But honestly, Olympic Games are a huge opportunity to accelerate this transformation of public spaces.
On a walking tour of Paris, the city's deputy mayor showed us how the city is also embracing climate solutions to endure long after the Olympics, including 800 miles of new bike lanes and planting 300,000 new trees.
If we wait too long, it will be more expensive and more difficult. So that's why we have decided to accelerate our investments. It's cheaper to do it now, and honestly, people are ready.
The hope is that Paris 2024 can spark a new kind of competition where countries compete with climate solutions for the gold medal in green.
If this Games can send a message that it's worth making an effort to reduce its own emissions, that it's possible, that yes, you can do it. You know, if this Games manage to send that message across, I think we have all won, you know, a really good medal out of this.
Behind me is the Louvre, now a famous art museum, but you may not know it was once also the home of the French monarchy. That is until 1682, when Louis XIV moved the royal court to Versailles. This summer, the site will host equestrian and modern pentathlon competitions. Versailles stands as a monument to Louis XIV's dedication to building an iconic palace, and almost 350 years later, is still a stunning sight to see. From Louis XIV's resplendent reign to revolution, the Palace of Versailles was a masterpiece, designed to demonstrate French superiority. This is the shimmering Hall of Mirrors. Incredible.
It's meant to be, to impress especially ambassadors or all important guests from abroad. There are 357 mirrors.
What was he trying to say, Louis XIV?
Of course, he had to say that he was the greatest king maybe in the world.
This is France at the zenith of its royal power.
Yes.
What started life as a small hunting lodge in the forests and swamps outside Paris developed into a glorious palace of 10,000 people. Louis XIV's power, his chateau has over 2,000 rooms, earned him the name the Sun King. And of course, every king needs an opera house. Today, one of the king's apartments is being recovered with gold. Back then, even the gardens inspired international awe and imitation.
This looks just like the Washington Mall, or the Washington Mall looks like this.
Yes, sure. And I think this idea is to have an unlimited perspective and maybe to be able to conquer the world.
I see the famous golden horses in the distance there.
Yes.
Louis XIV loved horses.
Yes, horses was his passion.
Louis XIV had 1,000 horses. He said it was the best way to get around this place. These days, a bike is à la mode.
50 years later, in a quiet corner, you would find the wife of another King Louis, France's most famous queen, Marie Antoinette. She did not love the pomp and protocol of the 18th century court, and desperate to escape that suffocating royal life, she even created this idyllic village. This is the Queen's apartments.
Yes.
You can understand why when you tour what we would call her private rooms.
And here's the most famous room of the palace, the Queen's bedroom.
The Queen's bedroom and the Queen's bed.
And the Queen's bed.
Huh. Even while the Queen slept, she was being watched by members of the court.
Yes, you cannot let someone as important as the Queen of France abandoned or not watched. You have everything she does is in public, getting dressed, getting her bath, everything.
How many people will have been in this room when she gave birth?
Several dozens of people.
Wow.
Her dislike of it all was famously reciprocated by France. In 1789, the revolutionaries stormed to the palace gates.
You have two little doors, very discreet, and this is where she escaped at the revolution, when the people invaded the palace.
And never came back?
Never.
Marie Antoinette.
She had no idea that she would never see this place again.
Huh.
The end of French royalty. Versailles' opulence had come to represent all the revolutionaries despised. Yet more than 200 years later, it is one of the most popular tourist attractions in the world, inspiring admiration, just as the Sun King envisaged.
When we come back, I'll take you inside the Herculean effort to restore Notre-Dame after a devastating fire.
Under the Eiffel Tower, the beach volleyball stadium now has 2,000 tons of imported sand.
We really welcome the world to come and to join us this summer.
Close by, a first look at the judo and wrestling venue, with almost 8,000 spectators expected.
It's going to be crazy. We have a magnificent stadium.
At the famed Place de la Concorde, where history has often been made, Olympic breakdancing will premiere. While next door,
look at this, the iconic Champs-Élysées already partially pedestrianised for the Games. The city of Paris itself becoming an Olympic venue. Are you having fun in Paris?
We found 5-year-old Isla from DC.
You never have a chance to be on the Champs-Élysées with no cars, barely any pedestrians, and it's all to yourself.
Most venues repurposed, such as the Stade de France, built for France's '98 Soccer World Cup, getting ready to host athletics competitions. And this aquatic centre, one of the few purpose-built facilities. NBC News got exclusive access to Team USA's training centre. Among the innovations there this Olympics, Intel trialling an AI app helping Olympian or Paralympian quickly find their way around.
Look at that, we're here.
Technology that allows essentially turn-by-turn directions indoors.
Hey, bonjour.
Holly Hasegawa-Leclerc from Seattle now lives with her family on a houseboat beneath the Eiffel Tower.
We are so excited about the Olympics.
They'll temporarily relocate their boat to make way for the opening ceremony, but they are no less excited.
To compensate for moving our boat for the Olympics, they are giving us 5 opening ceremony tickets, and that is definitely on my bucket list.
Way up there, you can once again see the cross atop the Notre-Dame Cathedral. It survived the devastating fire, which in 2019 destroyed so much of this beautiful building. It was lovingly restored over the past 5 years and reinstalled this May. But the work is not done. Hundreds of professionals are working on Notre-Dame ahead of a December reopening. The world able to admire this iconic cathedral once again. Beautiful.
It's fantastic. It's awesome. I just wish I could get inside.
Years of delicate restorative repairs, inside and out. The centuries-old monument now nearing completion. Parts of the massive scaffold are gone, revealing the carefully mended scars from the devastating fire.
We're coming back on the air with the breaking news out of Paris, where an inferno is burning at the famed Notre-Dame Cathedral, one of France's most popular tourist destinations. Firefighters are on the scene where the 850-year-old cathedral has been burning for hours now.
5 years ago, an inferno tore through the interior of the magnificent church, consuming 800 years of history in minutes. Bringing the cathedral back to its former glory required rare skills, remaking each of its famous wood structures. Amongst the few foreigners involved in the colossal effort, Hank Silver, a carpenter from New England who helped rebuild the roof made by medieval craftsmen. What does it feel like to be standing here now?
It still doesn't feel real, if I'm honest. It's still a bit of a dream, really.
Hank belongs to Carpenters Without Borders, a volunteer group of woodwork experts restoring historic structures around the globe. Last year, he watched overwhelmed as the trusses he crafted were transported and lifted into position. What was it like to watch that?
To see a truss of that scale, hand-hewn, pegged together, flying through space, it's a really out-of-time kind of experience.
Last December, NBC News got a special glimpse inside the cathedral, climbing 300 feet to spectacular views across Paris. So this is the spire that went crashing down. Exactly. We all watched it, all around the world. Right up there is where we were. Now the cockle can be seen across Paris again. We first met Hank last summer at a workshop in Normandy, painstakingly crafting the roof's beam.
In the US, we have a built tradition that's much newer. Being able to work on this building, which is the birth of this technique, is particularly meaningful.
Using replicas of medieval tools like these axes, Hank and his colleagues reconstructed each truss exactly as they were made in the 13th century.
As carpenters here, we've had to do things that the original carpenters never did. We've had to recreate all these inconsistencies, all these deformations that have accrued over the centuries.
The reconstruction effort, 5 years on, nearing the finish line, while Hank now calls France home. This incredible building has changed your life.
Oh, absolutely.
For the rest of your life, you can come here,
yeah,
and look at this and know that you had a part in it.
I'll be dining out on this for a long time, yeah. I think.
This is the city to dine out. Who doesn't love this Paris street life, with a cafe for a coffee or a wine? But below these streets is an underground site that is part of the city's heritage. The Paris Catacombs first opened its doors to the public in 1809. Now it draws hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. This is the way down.
It's only the beginning.
Hidden 65 feet underground, a glimpse into the soul of Paris. The Empire of Death. Death, death, death. Oh my goodness. It's kind of goosebumps, really.
Yes, some people even cannot believe that these are real bones.
These people are just piled up.
Yes, and from many, many centuries.
By the late 18th century, Paris's graves were full. To combat a public health crisis, the bodies from every grave were transferred to an empty quarry just outside the city. One of the things you really notice is the silence.
Yes.
It's just, there's nothing. It's thought up to 4 million skeletons were moved to the catacombs. But as revolution rocked France, Paris learned to celebrate the individual. Père Lachaise, one of the world's largest and most beautiful cemeteries.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Historian and author, Monsieur Jean-Manuel Tremont, has given tours of Père Lachaise for years.
The Père Lachaise is now clearly the most elegant place to be buried in Paris.
Even legends chose Père Lachaise as their final resting place. Oscar Wilde's grave.
The reason why Oscar Wilde is buried in Paris is because he was gay and he could not face London society, so he went to Paris to die. So here we have one of the most flowered graves of the whole cemetery. It's always popular, the grave of Edith Piaf.
Wow. So now another very famous grave.
That famous grave is that, of course, of Jim Morrison. And from day one, that is from 1971, gazillions of young people have come all over the cemetery. This will be where he is.
This is the grave.
Yeah,
this is Jim Morrison's grave. The grave, surrounded by barriers to keep fanatical pilgrims at bay.
I have seen things that I cannot describe, but happening exactly on the grave.
Wow. We're really obsessed with the dead,
we
aren't
are
we?
really obsessed with the
Us
dead.
living
exactly.
people.
The problem is, it will happen to us to become a dead person, so our obsession is a little bit understandable.
Not all of us, though, are as famous or as infamous as Jim Morrison. From the Middle Ages to Jim Morrison, Paris has lessons in life and death. After the break, we'll give you a sneak peek at the next city getting ready to host the 2028 Olympics. Welcome back to the Road to the Olympic Games 2024. Among Paris's many claims to fame, it's where many say the movies were born, way back in 1895, thanks to the Lumiere brothers. But for the next Olympic Games, we're heading to the city now most associated with the film industry, Los Angeles. Gary Schwartz is there with a preview.
Hey look, the cauldron is burning. There is arguably no place that says Olympics here in the United States as iconically as the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. It has stood here for over a century. It's hosted 2 Olympic Games, 1932, 1984, and for the tens of millions of people who have come here throughout the years for concerts, for some of the biggest sporting battles in history, they've always been reminded by those rings, by that flame, that LA is truly an Olympic city. Now, there are already so many massive venues like this spread all across Los Angeles, so the plan has always been to use as many existing venues as possible, but that of course is going to come with some renovations. Here at the LA Memorial Coliseum, that track you see, it is not anywhere near big enough, so what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to build a temporary platform by coming up about 14 rows. And that new elevated platform will let athletes warm up below before competing on the world stage up above. And right next door, more familiar rings for diving in front of the same pool that hosted the 1932 aquatic events. And about 7 miles away, SoFi Stadium will be playing a major role in these games, possibly even sharing the spotlight with the Coliseum for both the opening and closing ceremonies. And of course, nothing puts summer in the Summer Games like some sand and some surf. This is Santa Monica, the birthplace of modern-day competitive beach volleyball as we know it. Hopefully they'll get their time in the sun and the Pacific Ocean. So many possibilities for surf up and down the coast. 2028 cannot come soon enough.
And that's our show. We hope you enjoyed Road to the Olympic Games 2024. Be sure to tune into all the action with the Olympic Games on NBC and Peacock. I'm Keir Simmons. Au revoir.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.